You're selling the strings of numbers and letters for tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, I need to take care of these people too. Like, what if I take a big chance, take that moonshot and it doesn't work out? Oh, I don't know if I can really charge that. Like, am I worth that? Do I see the value in it? Is it easy to use? Kind of hard to go above and beyond for clients. Gonna feel it or will get replaced by AI.
Yeah. Welcome back to BackTracks, the #1 podcast where we go back into the lives of successful individuals and examine exactly what personality traits, what kind of vision, what kind of characteristics have brought them to where they are today and what the future has in store for them. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Matt Tigwell. Bro, we met a couple months ago at an event and this dude's just a savage. Turns out he's actually super smart. He's super chill, likes to mountain bike and snowboard like me. So Matt, how you doing today, bro?
Good, man. Happy to be here.
Dude, we're happy to have you. So a little bit of context on Matt. Matt started a software company, is a multi-7-figure founder from Canada. Dude's an absolute animal. Like, he's just a chiller. You're 27 years old?
Yep.
Dude, when did you get into the business that you're in now?
Dude, we're coming up on 4 years now. So I pretty much got out of school, or I was like, do my master's, and then got one consulting contract. And I just started doing like some software development work in the industry. And I was like, oh, this is way better than school, man. And then after that, I was like, couldn't focus on school. I was just like all in on business, absolutely loved it. And then, quit before finishing and then just scaled that up, built a team, everything. And then now here we are.
Dude, I love that. Okay. I have to ask, because there's the Microsoft, the founding stories of like all these tech companies or software companies getting started in the garage. When was like the first time you touched a piece of code?
For me, I actually never thought I was going to go into software engineering or software development at all. I knew I kind of had a knack for just like understanding things or trying to figure things out. I was very curious. So I thought I'd be a mechanical engineer because I grew up working on cars, working on dirt bikes, all this stuff. And then, went into school, general first year, thought I was going to do mechanical engineering. Switched to electrical because I was like, oh, there's a bit more opportunity. And then that kind of slowly like moved towards like more and more software stuff. And then like by the end of my undergrad, I was pretty much like all in on software just because I thought it was the best opportunity, the most scalable system and just like the best job opportunities coming out of school. And then obviously I didn't think I was going to jump right into business and stuff. I was looking at the job prospects coming out of it, but things change.
Look at you now. And so when you were looking into, I'm going to work on cars, I'm going to be a mechanical engineer, like I'm going to do these things, and then shifting into software, was it always about the money? You mentioned like, oh, this is the most scalable, like there's the highest ceiling in this career path, or what was kind of the priority as you shifted?
Scalability impacts the money, but it was more about the scalability of like building solutions that can impact more people. So when I was looking at, I actually went back and finished my undergrad, went back, and in between that time frame, I was working at Tesla. And while I was there, I was kind of thinking like, what do I think is the most impactful piece of technology that's being developed right now? And I think one of them for sure was the autonomous driving systems they were building. So I went back, I emailed the head of AI there, Andre Karpathy, and I was like, hey, what do I have to do to get onto this team?
Okay.
And he was like, take my courses at Stanford, go back, do your master's. If you're really exceptional, you get onto the team with just a master's. Otherwise, you need a PhD. So I went back, started doing my master's in AI. And then that was kind of when that shift happened. But my rationale was, I think this will be one of the most impactful pieces of technology worldwide. And that's really what drew me into software. And then obviously I didn't end up going down that route and building like autonomous driving software, but that was always the idea.
Yeah, because you look at it and you see that, oh, wait a second, this is the modern equivalent of the printing press or any of these other like life-changing inventions or discoveries or technologies. And you're like, okay, I want to be all in on this.
100%, man.
Do you think that you've lost sight of the impact focus or like that the ripples throughout humanity? Do you think you've lost sight of that as you've been building a business? Or
I think business is interesting because it's always the dichotomy of the big picture and what's going on, and then like you dealing with the nitty gritty and the day-to-day of the business. So I think it's always a balance between the two. Like hopefully you get to the point where you can not be in the business, immersed in it every day, because I think if that's the case, you can very easily lose sight of everything that's going on in the world and like where things are trending and stuff. So, but I think it's healthy to have a balance between the two, where you're like addressing the bottlenecks in the business, a really clear understanding of what's going on in the business day to day, but also you have that like 10,000 foot strategic view of the industry and the world.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because like same thing building a marketing company of early on, I was like, oh, I just want to be able to highlight issues that are important to me and like put attention on things that matter. And then I started a company and then it's like, wait a second, I have to pay, I have payroll and I have operating expenses and I can't just like go after nonprofits and random passion projects. So it's like, it's been this interesting juggle, at least for me in my business, of balancing passion projects and these things that really excite me with like also just cutthroat business opportunities to make us a ton of money and we get good results. But it's like I have this term that I use, moonshots, and I'm like, okay, like I have my moonshots, these things that really matter to me, and then I have the rest of the opportunity that I'm like, this works and I'm okay with it. Like it's not inherently wrong against my moral compass, but it's not exactly what I want to do.
How do you balance those two types of opportunities?
It's a tough thing, right? You know, because it's if I was challenged by a good friend Lucas actually on his podcast about if I'm making the most amount of money that I could be making. And I believe, like I set forth, if I do good business and I take care of the people and I only do business that I'm morally aligned with or morally agree with, I'll make more money. And he disagreed. He's like, dude, if you sold out your morals, you'd make way more money. And I'm like, short term maybe, but I don't think long term. How I've balanced it is I kind of look at it like tithing. And so it's like 1/10 of our time, 1/10 of our projects, 1/10 of our resources goes into something that's exciting to me. Passion projects, impact projects, and then the other 90%, obviously, we have a company to build. So,
yeah. Because there's the other aspect too is that you have to take care of your team too. Like if you just double down on passion projects where there might not be a return on that investment, too, you're like, oh, am I putting my team at risk or am I taking unnecessary risk for the business as a whole that's actually supporting other people? Yeah.
That was actually like one of the most humbling and maturing moments of my entire life was last year at 23 years old, excuse me, when I stepped down as CEO of the company and I watched 26 people lose their jobs. That was like the worst possible feeling I've ever had. It's like it made it real, right? Because it's like working online. Like I didn't see these people every day. I'm not going into an office. Like I work from home. But then it's like, wait a second, like that's 26 families. That's 26 livelihoods. That's 26 career paths. That's way more. Talk about impact driven. It's how many people do you employ?
We have 7 right now.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so it's like that. Those 7 people, I think, is actually a way higher degree of impact than, oh, I did this project where we fed 100 families. It's like you're feeding 7 families every day of the week, all year round. That's to me way better. So, yeah, it's an interesting balance.
100%. And it's interesting too, because that responsibility, it's like you go into business and there's a lot of risk and then you build a team and you're like, I need to support them. And the risk is even higher, but it sometimes makes it hard to like pivot or take like other risks in the business. Cause you're always like, oh, I need to take care of these people too. Like what if I take a big chance, take that moonshot and it doesn't work out stuff. So that's what I find is like a tricky balance, or when things just aren't working, it's always like that underlying, like that weight of that responsibility for everyone on the team. I got to take care of them.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's good, like a parental instinct, right? To be like, all right, let me make sure that these people are taken care of. Have you always been risk tolerant though? Like, or have you been risk intolerant, or like, what's your relationship with kind of betting the farm?
I'm super risk tolerant. Like I grew up obviously like mountain biking, racing dirt bikes and everything. I love the extreme sports. So I think like from a physical standpoint, like physical sports and stuff, always been really risk tolerant. I actually have noticed that as we've started to make a bit more money in the business, sometimes I find myself becoming less risk tolerant. Because you get used to having a bit of money in the bank. You don't really want to make big bets, or the bets get bigger when you have money.
Right.
It's like the investments into things, the pivots, everything gets bigger and like scarier. So I think there's been times, and especially recently, where I kind of need to reframe my relationship with risk, or change my relationship with risk, to be like, okay, now we're at this phase. The bets are bigger. The risk is bigger. I got to be okay with that and stuff. Yes. But I would say I've generally always trended towards being risk tolerant.
Well, I mean, that's good. That you're like, it's an interesting balance. It's good that you're maturing and that you're actually willing to, you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't just gamble my team. Something I've been looking at in my own risk profile is like whether I am more risk tolerant or risk averse when it comes to my personal safety and well-being or those around me. And so it's an interesting like thing that you've noted of like growing up mountain biking in the woods and snowboarding and doing extreme sports, for you, like moto biking or endurance biking. That's a lot of very individually dangerous things, but not inherently dangerous for those around you and other people. And so it's interesting because like we almost see like the willingness to like risk your social reputation of like doing things that stand out against the crowd, defying the norm, which would be like starting a business you were at that point 23 years old. Yeah, that's savage. And that's the type of like black sheep behavior that's very risk tolerant socially, but then you also have the risk tolerance personally. So it's just an interesting, I've been looking at it as like almost two different risk profiles.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like social reputation risk. Because that was a big thing coming out of school too. Like kind of a lot of my friends, for example, like everyone's going to these great jobs that they're like killing it. And then you're like, oh, I'm just going to dive in and hopefully this works.
Yeah.
And stuff like, how did you get into business? How did you manage that?
Dude, I stumbled my way into it. Actually, I haven't told the story and I don't want to derail the podcast. I've got a couple interesting questions for you, but I'll answer your question. When I was 11 years old, my closest friend at the time, Ian Cheney, he lived like a block down the street. His dad was like, all right, boys, you're starting a lemonade. Because we're like sitting around doing nothing with our summer. We're 11 years old. Like, what are we going to do all summer? And both of us really like magic tricks. And so Ian and I would practice magic tricks and then we'd go down to the main street of our tourist town and we do magic tricks for people. And we actually got a pretty good hustle going, like really good hustle going. And his dad is like, all right, you guys are going to start a lemonade stand at the farmer's market. We're going to get you like a lemonade, like a mobile lemonade truck. And we're going to get you a business license and you're going to make fresh squeezed lemonade and you're going to call it Magic Lemonade. And you're going to sell lemonade at the farmer's market, but you're only going to sell lemonade. Like one glass of lemonade comes with one magic trick. And so that was my first business at 11 years old. And this business printed, bro. I mean, like two of us, just Ian and I, we'd run it would be like a 5-hour shift plus an hour prep and an hour breakdown. So we're like 7 hours in on a Tuesday once a week. So 7 hours once a week. And that one night a week, farmer's market each week, would gross us top line revenue like $700 to $800. And our cost of goods sold was like 100 to 120. And so after front end investment of like the lemonade stand and the business license and getting like set up with the farmer's market, we were printing it like an 80% margin at 11 years old. And it's like $200 each, $300 each at 11 years old is millionaire money.
You're gonna be chasing that margin your whole life.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly the issue. And then so like I just kind of like kept on falling into business opportunities. Like when I was in high school, I was really good at math. And so I became a math tutor. And like it was, like kind of the opportunity there. And then I also like happened to really enjoy a certain recreational plant. Or some people call it a medicinal plant. Some people call it an illicit plant. And I got really into not only consuming the devil's lettuce, but sharing the devil's lettuce with others. So I was always kind of entrepreneurial in that sense of like, whether it was selling magic tricks and lemonade or selling the Mary Jane. But yeah. And then it's just like a lot of fortunate opportunities. I do want to ask, because like, so for me, my whole life I've known I wanted to be in business. Like since I was a little boy, I was like, I want to be a big business guy. Like I just want to build businesses. Whether or not I do that effectively, who knows? We'll find out. Give me 40 years and we'll measure backwards. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Like, because I've noticed that I have another friend in software. Sorry, I'll give you space to answer the question. I have another friend in software who had no idea he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He just really liked working on things. He was a tinkerer. And then he just found software and then he just realized it's easier and much more effective to make more money as a software engineer building a company out of it than being an employee. And so now he's just a software founder. Yeah. What's your journey with entrepreneurship and like?
Dude, a little bit similar. Like definitely like grew up like mowing lawns and everything, just like trying to make money, all these little side hustles and everything and stuff. And then actually, so my dad's side of the family, they've pretty much all been entrepreneurs. Like my grandpa on my dad's side, he ran like a denture clinic. And then my dad's always been, he's been back and forth between like being both a teacher and then an entrepreneur, like starting little software startups. So I always would talk about business when I was a little kid. with him. So it was always kind of like a part of my life growing up, but I never actually knew if it would come to fruition. Like I never knew if I'd actually follow in that path and become an entrepreneur and start a business until I was, probably in university.
Wow.
At that point, like even in high school, I really wasn't sure. I was thinking like, I'll go into engineering. That seems like a logical path, and then kind of just see what happens. Like I never had a clear plan for my career, I wouldn't say, until I kind of really found business or really got into it.
Yeah.
Where I was like, okay, this is what I want to do forever. I love it.
Yeah. You were locked in. You said, okay, sign me up.
Yeah.
That's so, have you always been, was the goal throughout your life to be wealthy? Like before even, yes, you're talking about business, all these things, but before you like really stepped into and fully went all in on the company you have now, did you still want to be wealthy? It was just like how you're going to get there, what kind of timeline or?
I mean, I think to some extent, like everyone wants to be wealthy, but like, was it my main goal? I don't know. I don't know. That's actually a really good question. I think I was always like, if I'm going to work, I might as well, go after the highest leverage opportunity or like the best opportunity in order to make money and stuff. Like I always knew I didn't want a normal life. I always knew I didn't want just a 9-to-5 normal job because so I had like a bit of a vision for, I knew what I didn't want. And maybe it was more running away from that than running towards like a specific goal at the time when I was younger and stuff. But I don't know, the way I look at it now is just like, what's like highest leverage opportunity? How can I help the most people? As a result, provide the most value and make the most money.
I mean, actually, I think to your point, I don't think anybody wants a 9-to-5 as much as everybody wants to be wealthy. I don't think anybody wants to, work a 9-to-5. It's interesting because like you're talking about planning on going into mechanical engineering. And like, I would consider that probably like there's some really good opportunities at the top of the field, but that's it actually breaks my heart that you can't just be like an electrician or a plumber anymore and like still afford like a family of four and 2 cars in the garage and a nice, like it breaks my heart that you can't just be blue collar successful anymore. And it's like, it seems like it's like, all right, you have to work in some kind of IP or you have to start a business to even be able to like afford a family, which to me is fucked up. Like if we're going to be in a first world country, everybody should have a standard base of living. It's so interesting because it's like, I've noticed this with a couple of my friends who, including yourself, who've reached like the millionaire and multi-million-dollar run rate as a company at a young age. I've noticed this thought process across everybody that it's like, yes, you want to be successful, but it's not the most important thing to you. It's not like you're like, oh my God, I have to be a millionaire this year. Like, did you ever write down on a vision board or in a journal? Like, did you set the goal? Like, I'm going to be a millionaire in 12 months. And then like,
I have a like 2-year target. I have a career target. I have a few targets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, are you open to talking about kind of your process for setting goals and how you've brought them down?
Yeah, I'm very open to it. I don't know if I have a good process.
Yeah. But it seems like historically it's working.
I said, like up to honestly, when I started the business, we were like pretty quickly successful. Like we hit 100K months within like 12 months.
Wow.
Of starting it, which I didn't really expect. We honestly got pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. And like that was not me being like a killer or being good. Like we genuinely, I think, got very lucky at the beginning.
Can we unpack that? Like, how did you stumble into the right opportunity? Because 100K a month in your first 12 months is nuts.
Yeah.
Like, how did you put yourself in the right rooms? Like, yes, there's like luck, but luck is preparation meeting opportunity. Like, how did you find the right deals to do that? Because your average ticket's 20 to 40K a month.
Yeah. I would say like 20K per month is pretty average for us. Yeah. So we don't have like a crazy number of clients, but we have like quite a few like big clients that we serve. Which
I would argue is better. Like I would much rather serve 5 clients paying me 20 to 50K a month than deal with, 50 clients paying me 2 to 5K a month.
100%.
Less pain in the ass. How did you find those clients? How do you fall into this?
So I had one basically that we like started with that I got connected to through one of my friend's dads actually. So it was like purely like pretty far-fetched network opportunity that kind of came to me. Had that, and then at that time I was started working with that friend. So he was like the first engineer on our team, and then after that I got involved in a few other projects just through the network. Those just ended up like leading to more and more opportunities. So like I actually met one guy he had a startup and then he had an agency that he used to run. and he was shutting down the agency to go all in on the startup. So he ended up handing me a bunch of clients as well. Those clients all grew. The network grew from those, telling other people and stuff. So like we got really lucky in that first 12 months. Just the people that we met, people ended up, I guess, trusting us. I think that we had a really good positioning in terms of being able to talk in a non-technical way and also point out different, not just like develop a spec for software, but instead like help them improve the product, like give them feedback on, both how it would fit into the market and the actual growth trajectory of the business, but also like the security, the scalability, like all the more technical aspects. We'd be looking out for them and like looking into the future and be like, here's some risks that we foresee into the future for you. And that was like a lot of the feedback we got was exactly that from people. Like nobody else I've talked to in the software space has, talked in this way or brought up these things to me. Everyone else is just trying to like, give us a cheap price and then offshore and build out the product for us. Yeah. Whereas like our position was really like, we want to help you build a successful business. Like we're not here to just, write code for you. We want to help you build out all the aspects around it and put together a strategy to actually be successful.
That's so huge. Some of the most successful people I know personally think the same way that you just presented that in terms of like, you're actually looking at the problem from a zoomed out perspective of, can I understand the business as a whole, the degrees of complexity, and how this specific thing that I'm solving for them fits into the rest of their puzzle of like, how valuable is this problem actually to the company? It's just interesting, especially like, we talk a lot about with entrepreneurs. It's like most entrepreneurs are charging way too little or going after way too low quality of clients. You're selling obviously intellectual property, code, our services, right? I've noticed that a lot of people struggle with, like the imposter syndrome or like self-worth when it comes to like, you're selling strings of numbers and letters for tens of thousands of dollars. I'm not asking on like, how do you value or how do you set price values as a company, but out the gate, you're getting large contracts. Out the gate, you saw pretty good success. How do you think that played into your personal self-worth? Like, how do you, because I think a lot of people would fall into the trap of trying to start a software company and immediately charging, $5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand a project total, versus you walked in the door and you're like, all right, what's up, motherfuckers? It's going to be 20 grand a month for this project. Let's cook. What's that been like with your own personal self-worth?
I think it's always just you're overcoming like or you're creating like a value gap between like the alternative and yourself. Like when you're selling, if someone's trying to sell them a project, like you're going to get what you pay for if you go for a $5,000 project versus like a $100,000 project. And that's, I'll get to the self-worth question in a second, but that's one of the big things they find is like people don't understand that in software. Is like you can buy a Toyota or you can buy a Ferrari.
Yes.
The same is true for software. Like you can buy a hacked together piece of software, or you can have a beautifully written, like amazing user experience, scalable, secure, like everything. And it's really hard to kind of identify where in that spectrum are we building for with some clients. And that's probably one of the hardest things about the sales process is creating like a defined, like where are we shooting for in terms of like the capability of the software, and then matching that to the budget to actually get what they want.
Yeah.
But in terms of self-worth or that imposter syndrome, I don't know. I just kind of was like thrown into it to the point where like when we started, we got a lot of new clients and we got put on some really big projects or won some really big projects. And then we're like, this is something we have to do. Like we have to deliver for them. I care a lot about making sure that they have like a great client experience and then they crush it.
Yeah.
So we were just like working hard all the time. I didn't even really have a lot of chance to like sit back and think about that for the first like year or 2 years and stuff. And then honestly, after that, we had enough reps in, we had done enough where I was like, okay, yeah, we can do this. And honestly, I had a lot of people that we'd worked with tell us like, no one's thinking about these other things, like other development companies we've worked with. This is why we like you guys better, because you're thinking about the success of the company. You're thinking about the growth trajectory, like all the strategic elements around the product. So we're getting a lot of really good feedback like that. And that also obviously helps you be like, okay, this positioning works. We're actually helping people and like people are choosing us for a reason.
That's huge. That's huge. It's interesting. Like something I've noticed with pricing is that when you try to price yourself competitively with other people, you're focused on like, how do I squeeze this amount of budget? It's like, how do we make sure every dollar makes sense and make sure there's a reason for this pricing versus like, price gapping. It's like, okay, if I, instead of like, oh, I'm going to price $5,000 because my competitors charge 6K. Instead, it's how do I charge 50 grand for this project or 100 grand for this project? And then suddenly you're looking at value creation and you're saying, okay, I can make a 10 to 1 return, or I can create, 10 to 1 X position here. It's interesting because it's like the soft skill or the personality trait that you have is like, okay, I committed to this project. I'm going to show up and I'm going to deliver. So you have a certain degree of integrity within yourself of like, well, shit, pressure's on, let's go. And there's also, I think, like maybe this comes from your background in extreme sports, and I would consider the sports that you've done extreme. There's this other side of it of like, okay, well, I might as well shoot for the moon. It's like, okay, well, if I can ride a bike, like, why can't I hit the jump? Why can't I go down the trail? So it's cool because you're swinging for the fences, and then you're actually trying to follow up and cover the bases as quickly as possible.
100%.
Nice.
And that's actually a really good point. Like, I'm sure you probably found this in the agency space too, is like, if you price just based on shooting for a margin, fulfillment costs, and really like price yourself competitively in the market, it's kind of hard to go above and beyond for clients. Like, you identify other areas of opportunity. You're like, oh, I really know we get a good result if we did this for you, but now I got to go back and like charge them more or lose money on the project. And it becomes very hard. You end up too pinched on fulfillment. Whereas like if you price on value and you're going after like a larger ticket sale there, like I'm so happy to jump in and be like, oh, we need to fix this. We'll do X, Y, and Z, go way above and beyond for you because I know it's going to get you the result. And you bought the result, not the fulfillment. And I think that's the key.
Dude, it's a great distinction of like you're buying a result, not a process, not just X amount of hours or not just X amount of human resources. You're buying a result. It's not to get too esoteric on you, but I saw this thing that like all throughout history, humans didn't really actually have free will. It's like most people were just like serfs. Most people were just peasants that just worked the lands, or were craftsmen or woods workers or metal workers. And now for the first time really in human civilization or history, people have an option to like do whatever they want and like create career freedom or go get educated and whatever they want. Like it used to be, hey, you have a woodsman, or you have like a carpenter and you have a blacksmith in the village. And other than that, like, unless you're going to go learn from your dad how to be a farmer, you're kind of stuck with those options to apprentice. And now it's like, you can literally do anything. And so I think like the downside of that, talking about this issue of like creating spaces, like everything in life, I think is much harder than we realize. Like everything takes way more work and is way more expensive than we plan. And so when you sell a result, when you create a value-based opportunity, you're creating space because it's like you now have this opportunity to actually go above and beyond, or like you hit a bottleneck or you hit a constraint and you're like, okay, I have space to solve for this, versus like, I think the human brain, going back to like the free will and how humans have been kind of raised or bred throughout society, I think we have this condition to just like think of like worker bees. Like we're grinding. And it's like, if we set the project just at enough, or it's just enough money, or we have just enough margin, then suddenly you're back in this like peasant poverty mentality of like, okay, I just need to get through this project. Because you don't have the space to go, how do I make this the most beneficial thing? How do I build my kingdom? How do I build the empire out of this project?
100%.
So.
And I think part of it too, like back to your question about self-worth, I think that's a big differentiator between the people that, really kill it and become very successful and people who don't, is you just like, you're not afraid to like assign a value to yourself that's really high, a bit out of reach, like, oh, I'm worth $100 an hour, $200 an hour, $300 an hour. And stuff. You see a lot of people be like, oh, I don't know if I can really charge that. Like, am I worth that? Yeah. Then the people who like end up crushing it are the people who are like, yeah, of course I can, like I am worth it and stuff. So I think that really ties into that as well, as just like have a high self-worth, tied to your success.
Have you heard the story of Julius Caesar getting kidnapped by pirates?
No.
So Julius Caesar, when he was like 18 years old, and this is before he's like conquered the entire known world, gets kidnapped by pirates, and they try to put a ransom on his head for, I think it was like 50 of the gold coins or whatever it is, or 50. It was like equivalent of like tens of millions of dollars today, like huge freaking fee. And Julius Caesar's like, you guys are dumb, like double that, like double or triple the ransom. And so he demands that the pirates increase the ransom on his head. And then he refuses to act like their prisoner. And so he refuses to let them hold him captive. He actually drinks with the pirates. He's like walking around the boat. He's giving the pirates instructions, and they're holding him at ransom. And he jokes with them. He goes, I've really enjoyed my time with you guys on this boat. They're holding him ransom. Really enjoyed my time with you. But when you let me free, I will come back with my men and I will have you all crucified. I'm gonna come find you and I will crucify you for kidnapping me. And then he, of course, like his men come, they pay the fee, and then he goes back home and he raises an entire army and he comes back and he gets all of the gold that they just paid for his ransom and he crucifies all of the pirates that kidnapped him. And I'm like, that's some diabolical levels of self-worth. Like, number one, it's like, oh, the ransom's too small. Like, you should charge more for my head. Like, that's an insult. That's an insult to my worth. And then, like, what do you mean you're going to capture me? I'm way too valuable. Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's a necessity in life and in business to realize it's like, you are as worth in today's world, you're worth as much as you decide you're worth, right? Throughout history, it was you were either a peasant or a blacksmith or an aristocrat or a royal family member. But in today's world, anybody can be whatever they want to be. And I think like you choosing to do what you want to do, I do believe we all want to be craftsmen. We all do want to be artisans. We all do want to make quality things. It's just we get stuck in the rat race of like, oh, I'm not worth it, or oh, I need to charge small amounts. Oh, I should work for free until I get results, or I should go do these things. It's like, no, I should put myself in the right opportunities to propel myself forward.
And when you get started too, it's almost a bit scary in the sales process to like throw a big number out there too. Like, did you ever find that when you were just starting out with the agency?
Yeah, I think even to this day, it's like, it's always like, I think anytime we push on our ceiling, it's uncomfortable. It's like, oh fuck, should I really do more?
How do you like overcome that personally?
I think number one, cookie jar, right? The David Goggins, like, have evidence of your past success. So it's like, we've done multi 6-figure projects that went really well. And so I'm like, all right, cookie jar. So I think number one, have evidence. And if you don't have evidence, the second thing is like, you got to, how do I say that? I think you need the space to be comfortable losing out. It's like, if you're coming into it with desperation of like, oh my God, everything is riding on this, you're not going to be comfortable like shooting for the moon. You're going to settle for whatever's available, right? You're going to be begging for scraps. You're going to say, whatever budget you have, I'll take it. Whatever you can afford, I'll say yes to.
And then you're probably not going to win the sale anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Versus like, you're good. People want to work with you. You know that you deliver well. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like, what would I actually be excited to work on this project for? What's the win-win? And go for that. So, yeah. Curious, actually, same thing for you. Did you ever work for free? Or what was it like getting those first couple of projects and pricing them at pretty high amounts?
We priced for a long time just based on like per hour rate and stuff. So yeah, with those, obviously it was like, we would slowly like creep it up, almost like we'd start like, okay, this is our rate. This is what we think we can get. And the next project, it'd be like a little bit higher, then a bit higher and stuff, until we kind of, come into a spot where like, okay, now we're like, I think where we should be and stuff. But really what we've been focused on the last year or so is shifting the entire model of the agency away from that hourly or even like a monthly retainer model towards like, more performance based. So like revenue share or like results focused or like fixed programs kind of thing with like a fixed cost associated with them and stuff. So we've been really focused on making that transition over the last 12 months.
That's exciting. I do think like the highest level of business operations, like it's almost the hedge fund model of taking a piece off the top. It's like, once you have a good enough foundation in your business, being able to strategically partner and build equity or take a piece of revenue, it's like, that's the most elite business model. Like, Visa's the most profitable company in the world.
Really? No, I didn't know that.
Dude, it's I think, don't hold me on this, but I'm fairly certain that Visa is the most profitable company in the world. And what do? Right? They just like transact. They're just a merchant. They're just a middle person, but they get 3% of everything. It's not a flat rate. It's like, you don't open a restaurant and get, I'm going to pay Visa $50 a month to process 50 Visa cards. Just give us 3%. Yeah, 2.9.
Maybe they won't notice.
Yeah. And they're clearing, it's something absurd, like 70 or 80% gross profits. It's nuts.
Damn.
Yeah, breaks my heart. Yeah, I think that's the right business model. So I'm curious, early days, you're starting your company. This is first 12 months, you go from, let's say, 3K a month, 5K a month, 10K a month, and snowballs up to 100K a month in your first 12 months. What was the work life like? Was it just you in your garage, here in my garage, or what was it like?
I had a little office set up in my basement when I started. I moved to the west coast of Canada, a small town called Pemberton
Nice.
and stuff. And then I was working. I had, early days right out of the gate, pretty much had like one engineer who was one of my friends working for me. And then I hired a second engineer who I also knew from university. And so both absolutely killers, great guys. And from there we kind of like started to slowly like scale it up, like started to hire. A lot of the projects that we got, they like grew pretty quickly. So like we'd get one piece of the project or work on one piece of the code base. Yeah. And then they'd be like, oh, we actually like need you to take on this as well, or we need more resources here. So we like scaled the team really quickly from that. And then at the time it was like, we're all working from home. Stuff. Nice. I just had my little like dark basement set up there and it'd be grinding away.
Just in the lab, in the studio. Yeah. I love it. What was the biggest mistake you made in the first 12 months? What was probably the thing that, what was the biggest mistake?
I think especially if you're scaling quickly and you have never done it before, like, you have to realize that like the CEO or like the leader of most small companies are like the least qualified person in the company because you've never been hired for that role. You don't necessarily have expertise in that role. Like I had never had like management training to manage a team. Like you have to figure all these things out. So I think the team culture, managing the team, building out operations and stuff, when you're thrust into that and you're growing quickly, and to be able to zoom out and figure all these things out at the same time is like extremely difficult and stuff. So I think even now I struggle with it a little bit. Like we've invested heavily into learning from entrepreneurs that have really good like operating systems in order to like scale operations, manage their team better, like have structure surrounding like performance reviews, check-ins, all this stuff. But like at the time we knew nothing. Like I was going in so cold, just like, oh, we'll have a stand up in the morning. We'll do X, Y, and Z, but just based on what our gut was telling us, like we really didn't know what we were doing.
That's tough. So would you say like the leadership element of it, it was like the performance reviews, hiring, setting culture, setting expectations, when a team member was underperforming, number one, measuring and knowing that they were underperforming, and number two, like setting a new standard. Those would be kind of the primary issues early on.
Yeah, I think well, dude, it was like everything, man. It was that like the operational side. It was also the like sales side. I'd never done sales before. I was like an engineer through and through until that point and stuff. So like no marketing, no sales, no operations, no management experience, like nothing. I basically came in with like, we knew how to write code. Like, so that was my background coming into it. So I was kind of like, I would say the hardest part was just like learning everything at the same time and like figuring out what to balance. So like the only thing that I thought was intuitive, at least at the start, was like the financial model, because we were working hourly. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. I pay this per hour, I charge this per hour. Yeah. And then I keep that makes sense. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. Do you think that have you ever made a bad hire? Like
100%, dude. I've made hires where I like hired them on Monday, started on Monday, and like fired them on Friday.
Oof. I thought the saying was hire slow, fire fast. Like, damn, brother. Oh man, that's tough. What does your hiring process look like now?
It depends on the role. For engineers, we're considering moving to a model where it's like less full-time. Like I have my in-house full-time guys and then having more subcontractors so we can fluctuate with the amount of work a bit easier. Because like I never want to end up in a situation where I have to let someone go, like a full-time hire due to not having enough work. And it's also hard to quickly hire them when you have too much work. But our hiring process on the engineering side is we throw job ads out there on a few different sites. We basically shortlist everyone based on getting them to send us a Loom video. Yeah. So we get every single person to send us like a 3-minute video about themselves, their experience, why they applied, why they think they'd be a good fit. And then usually about like 25-30% of people actually send it back to you. So you just like you cut a bunch of them there, you go through, either me or someone on my team will go through those videos, and then we'll shortlist from there. Then we run through a couple step interview process. So that's good. Normally my head of operations will go through, especially on the engineering interviews. He's more technical than me, or just better technically than me. He'll run through that first interview, and then I'll do an interview with them after that.
Nice. Two things to note on the hiring process that I found extremely, extremely beneficial. Number one, for any kind of technical role, we would put a tripwire in our job, like the initial job posting of like halfway through or 3/4 of the way down in the job posting, we'd be like, include the word rabbit at the top of your resume or at the top of your application if you've read this instruction completely, and then straight back into the rest of whatever it was. And so then we could shortlist immediately on, has this person even read the instructions for a technical role? Obviously, that's everything. And so it's a total, like, it's just an immediate identifier whether or not this person, not even on qualification or criteria, but is this person even paying attention? Are they teachable? Are they going to follow instructions, or are they?
Too.
Yes, attention to detail. And then the second thing, I'm sure you do this, so you have your employee or your team member run your first round of interviews for technical expertise. I heard this thing of the airport test. And so it's like, for you, it's like the airport test is, if I was stuck in an airport with this person, would I even want to have a conversation with them? Like, my flight got canceled. Am I going to sit next to them, or am I going to go find somewhere else to be? And I think that's like a great hiring thing of like, I don't necessarily need to love this person or be, like want them at my family dinner or find them the most interesting human in the world. But is there something that we share an interest on that we can actually have a conversation about? Or does this person just not someone I want to be around whatsoever?
100%. And it's specifically within software engineering, it's also a little bit tricky to find. Like, it's really hard to find a good, personable software engineer who like understands the code and like the business side a bit. Like, they're a little bit zoomed out, but also detail oriented. It's really, really hard to find. So like, our hiring process for our full-time engineers is actually, it takes a while to find the right person, the right fit on the culture side and the skill set.
I can imagine. What's it like being in the software engineer when you have companies like Netflix? Like, you have some of the biggest, highest valuation companies in the world in the same industry that you're in. Do you have plans to, build a multi-billion or trillion-dollar company, or like, what's it like? Because like, relatively, you're 27-year-old making 6-figure months, 7-figure run rates per year. Like, you're killing the game. But you're also comparing yourself, or you're probably, you're in the same pond as some of the biggest fish in the world. What's that like for you, and what's your mindset on it?
Well, I think our current agency model is obviously a different, less scalable model inherently than some of those other big tech companies.
For sure.
But yeah, it's obviously hard on the hiring front. Like, I think right now in the last, year and a half, we've really seen like a slowdown and like a lot of tech layoffs. And as a result, the salaries have come way down. But before that, man, like, it was craziness. Like, finding a good software engineer, you're competing against all the big tech companies. The salaries are sky high. They want they want the world and stuff. So you're like kind of bending over backwards to get good talent on the team. And it was really hard because when you look at stats like the revenue per employee that these companies are generating on the agency side, I'm like, it's hard to compete with them doing like multi-hundred or multi-millions per employee on the team. It's just hard to make the numbers work sometimes. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, yeah. And it's like, I mean, I've got some friends that work in software where your 6-figure starting compensations, like mid 6-figure compensations. Like, I know a couple guys in software that have 7-figure compensation packages working for a company. I'm like, this is insanely good money. And so it's like, you're doing amazing as an agency, yes, but you're also, I'm sure, like, you're having people that are applying for jobs and they're expecting $200K starting or $250K comp plans. Yeah, that's like, that must be really annoying.
Yeah. Like, and the scene's a little bit different, like Canada to the US. So we work mostly with US clients, but everyone that's full-time on my team is a Canadian.
Okay.
And stuff. So that helps us out a little bit because there's just like less competition in the tech scene in Canada. Salaries tend to be like a little bit lower. So like, we're more competitive. Whereas like, if I was hiring out of San Francisco, like, I just could never make the numbers work to run an agency and hire top talent. Whereas like, kind of the niche we're in, like Canadian team, US clients, it allows us to have like a really high caliber for talent, but still like make it work so we can really over deliver.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. Like, I love that you're from Canada and you're employing a Canadian workforce. It's so, because like, I think a lot of people look down on the offshoring or nearshoring of team and talent. And about, that's not patriotic. And I'm a very pro-America guy, but it's like, I could get PhDs. I could get the top 0.1% of talent if I went South America, or I went to Canada, or I went to these nearshore opportunities for the same compensation level that I'd be getting a guy in America that like uses ChatGPT for all of his code, doesn't really know what he's doing. He's like a mid-bachelor, and he'd be like a great pencil pusher at a company, but yeah, it's just tough.
Well, I actually think that with, all these like AI elements, they're just like a productivity multiplier. So I think what's going to happen is top 1% talent, especially onshore, the salaries are going to go up because they're now more productive, and all those soft skills that surround like their software development ability become more and more valuable because it's like they can produce way more code. They can just pump out way more stuff. And then it's like the way that they're thinking about it is what's valuable. So it's like the systems design, not like the every line of code, how they actually do it. It's like the architecture surrounding it and their approach to it. That's going to become super valuable. And then what we're going to see is the actual code is going to be like more and more commoditized or like more and more automated by AI. And I don't think like AI is not the point now where it's going to like replace software engineers, because like there's a lot of talk about that. But it is at the point where like on our team, we've seen a big increase in productivity by using AI tools to help out the team to like auto write some tests, to auto complete lots of the code stuff. So I actually do think that for the top, 1-2% talent, it's actually going to be better for them. But I think there's a lot of like mid or lower tier talent that's really gonna feel it or will get replaced by AI.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all. It's like it's interesting because it's like it's going to be pushing and moving away from like just being able to do pencil pushing work. It's like what I'm seeing over and over throughout society is like we're moving away from monotonous tasks. It's like we're just automating things, we're increasing leverage in things. And so it's, the actual talent in software engineering is going to be forced to, you like create solution flows or think through complex problems instead of just, creating. But it's interesting because I think about it of like any industry, right? Like if we look at, let's say like working with stone masonry. So it's now we have like large excavators and we have like large mechanical equipment that we can use to work in the industry. And yet we still have like artisans, and we still have these artists that do everything by hand and make very elegant, beautiful things. And we're probably going to see the same thing where you have like hyper use case softwares that are like made by hand by fine craftsmen, boutique type agencies or boutique developers that are like, okay, look at this super cool project. But for the majority of work, it's going to be, all right, we have really, really, really smart developers that are using these mechanical tools, these AIs to just move a ton of ground.
100%. And it depends. I mean, it really depends on the size of the company, I think, in software when you look at that concept, because, for the early stage startups, the user experience is important, but it's not like this crazy artistic, like amazing, immersive user experience that's going to sell it. It's like, especially in the B2B space, it's, does this software do the job that I'm looking to be done? Yes or no? Like, do I see the value in it? Is it easy to use and stuff? Is it intuitive? And I think AI is really good at producing that sort of product or helping with that sort of product. But I completely agree that that more artistic, like amazing user experience, you see that kind of in like the companies that are a little bit bigger. It's like first step, get software, get traction, scale up, and then they're having people come in that are like really, really good on the user experience side to like modify and like improve the product from there.
Right. Matt, does it ever feel weird working in software in terms of like, I grew up working with my hands, you grew up in nature, you grew up like doing things physical. Does it ever feel weird that like your life exists of like if we had a solar flare or an EMP, like your work has no traces versus like, oh, I built houses or I worked at a mine. Like, does it ever feel weird just working behind a computer all day?
Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I hate it.
Yeah,
like sometimes I feel like it's one of those things where if you work at a computer all day, you're like, oh, I just wish I had a job where I was like using my hands going out building something. Right. But then I think if you're like working 12 hours a day construction, you're probably like, oh I wish I could just sit at a computer for a day. Yeah.
Like if you're stuck on a roof in 110 degree weather, you're
like, oh, I wish it's so much easier if I was at a computer.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. I just look at it in terms of like you mentioned earlier on about like wanting to do things impact driven and like wanting to whether it's work or building companies that like actually change something. Do you feel like you're actually affecting or creating the change that you wanted to when you set out on this path?
I think so. And I'm really looking forward to the future too. The way that we're trending right now, I'm just trying to figure out how can we scale up, take on more clients, help more people kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to that because I think, in an agency, it's hard sometimes if you only have a few clients, like you're making a big impact on a few people. Now we're looking to transition into like how can we have like still a really big impact, but on like more and more people, and how can we scale that up quickly? Stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that.
What direction do you want to take the company? So you mentioned like you want to scale it up. I noticed for me, like it was very easy to lose sight of like just wanting to make the numbers bigger, whether it's revenue or team or profit or number of clients or whatever kind of client result metrics that we were measuring. It was like, oh, I just want to make the number bigger. Are you, what direction do you want to take the company? What do you actually want to push to increase?
So what we have actually been making the move to is like, we started out with just software development, and then we became more and more like product focused. And then we actually found that a lot of our clients were having a problem with like product market fit and growth after they built their product. So then we got into like actual growth stuff, like growth consulting, a few like done for you growth clients that we brought on and everything. So then we were like, okay, like I think that the highest leverage or like the best opportunity is now we want to help grow SaaS companies, not just do the software side. So really what we've been pivoting towards is becoming like a growth agency and running like growth programs for a lot of SaaS companies that are between like $1 and $5 million in annual recurring revenue and stuff. And that's also like going to be a lot more scalable, just the way that we've set it up, where we're not building their products anymore, but we're helping out strategically on how to grow from that 1 to 5 to like 8-figure recurring revenue.
That's super exciting. Yeah, there's the structure of like there's only ever 3 problems in a business, and it's product, marketing, and sales, and usually in that order. So it's funny. There's that thought process of like, oh, like the best businesses, they solve a problem and then they solve the next problem and then the next problem and then the next problem, which is exactly, you're just going downstream. It's like, all right, we're going to help you build world-class products. Well, what's going to happen once you have a world-class product? You don't know how to bring it to the marketplace. Yep. So let's solve that. And then what happens when you have a world-class product and hyper-effective marketing? Well, how do you actually convert people and keep people, which is sales and retention? So it's like you're almost solving problems as they come down the stream.
They're hard problems. Like we work in SaaS, and retention especially. Like if you're looking at a product and people are churning, how do you fix it?
Yeah. Where's your stickiness? Like, yeah. How do you, I mean, of course they're hard, right? Like these are problems that are built into human nature. And these are problems that are like, if everybody knew the magical solution, like if some guru on the internet could tell you exactly how to have the perfect product with the perfect marketing with the perfect sales, like we would solve capitalism. Like, oh no, we have a perfect system, but we don't. So you're just solving inefficiencies, which is super exciting. Oh, Matt, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
It's a good question. I right now I'm still focused on the agency that's about a 2-year play for me. I think 2 to 3 more years that we'll be running the agency and then transitioning to this like done with you growth agency model. Past that, I would love to start another like my own like AI company kind of thing, where it's not service based. We're actually creating a product, bringing it to market. And we're doing that on the side right now. Like we have one SaaS product that we are growing. That's like our own kind of product we're incubating and stuff. Exciting. But I think doing more and more of that over the next 10 years.
There you go. Is Matt Tigwell going to be the next Sam Altman?
I don't know about that.
TBD.
I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, that's also true. Okay, so we'll end with this. I am super curious. When it comes to the AI stuff, do you think this is going to end the world? Do you think we're going to lose? Like, have we lost sight of what humanity really means with technology?
I think there's a few problems with the AI. One is we won't have enough jobs, so people can't make money. I think the bigger problem is the loss of jobs comes with loss of purpose. So it's like, let's say everything's automated for you and there's not enough jobs, so you don't have a job, and the government pays you like universal basic income.
Yep.
It's like, what are you going to be motivated towards? What are you driving towards? Yep. And is it art? I don't know. It's like, what are you doing? I think that loss of purpose is going to be the biggest.
Especially when AI is actually replacing more white collar jobs than blue collar jobs. Like AI isn't fixing windmills and doing plumbing. AI is reviewing legal code, and we're creating surgery robots.
Well, it's the opposite of how we thought it was going to go. Yeah. Obviously, we thought it was going to be like the simplest tasks up towards like complex, like white collar jobs. And then it was going to be creativity and like art. And it's been like art down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, actually the AI is better at creating art and writing poetry and now like combing through legal code or creating software and doing medical
Mhm.
use case or medical research. And then it's like, wait a second, like the gap in the middle is like we're eroding the middle of
Mhm.
the economy or the job market or the middle class. It's like and now we have these people that own programs and own platforms and are like the engineers. And then we have people that are like, all right, well, someone's got to maintain the storage units. Someone's got to,
Yeah. Well,
keep the.
I think there's that part of it, like the loss
Mm,
of purpose or what's going to happen societally. But I think that
mm,
there is a significant existential risk
yeah,
to AI. I think that if you look at most things people are afraid of, like most existential risks, I think that the experts aren't afraid. They understand AI. That's not the case. Like the experts in the AI field are some of the biggest whistleblowers
yeah,
right now, or the people raising the flag going, this is dangerous. We need to stop.
yeah.
Um,
And the last time we had experts doing this was what, nuclear technology? When people are like, "Whoa, like we understand this better than anybody else. Calm the fuck down." Like,
I think AI is way more dangerous than nukes. I think it's not close.
break that down for me.
There's actually a famous clip of Elon getting asked that question on a podcast,
Yeah,
and his response is effectively that like with nukes, it's very easy to regulate the technology. Like you can't create nukes in your basement.
mm,
With AI, all the code's open source. It's all there. Anybody can use AI in their basement and create whatever they want. So it's extremely hard to contain. Like once that Pandora's box is open, and
it already is.
it might already be, it's
Yeah.
it's you can't close it.
Yeah. And then so like I think the thing that most people maybe at home listening to this have an issue with is like, well, what the fuck does that mean though? It's like, oh, we're all talking, oh, AI is going to be on the loose and anybody can create AI, but it's like, I don't think people are understanding like what actual danger there is, right? Because like with nuclear technology, the danger is, oh, someone can make a bomb and blow up the whole city.
Mm.
Versus AI, people are going, well, what's the consequence of someone writing an AI in their basement? Like, walk me through some of the potential fallouts.
Well, AI is all just based on an objective function. You're just giving an objective and then it's kind of figuring out how to accomplish it,
Mm,
right? So I think even if it's not used in a malicious way, if you have a very powerful AI, you give it an objective function, it's almost like humans are in the way is a potential. Like if you say solve climate change and stuff, well, maybe it comes to the conclusion that humans are the cause of it and
right.
they're removing them as a solution for it. So I think there's obviously a lot of like malicious use cases that people could develop it for, but I think there's also unintended consequences of having it try and fix problems, and then humans are just kind of an afterthought. So it's extremely important that in the development of AI, it has some, it's like trained at its base level to value human life.
Yeah.
But also just the way that AI models are constructed, it's very difficult to actually embed that into it.
It is.
Like it's even what you're seeing with the AI models with some of the woke stuff. It's almost like it's being like overwritten, or like there's hard-coded rules that you can tell when you're interacting with some of these AI models that it's like you can't say this, you can say this. It's hard to like make AI effective and give it freedom to give you the most valuable response while also having these hard-coded set of constraints around it. Whether
Right.
that's be woke, whether that's like value human life or don't do anything that would harm people, whether it's
Yeah.
whatever it is.
And these are also like, if you're setting hard set constraints on the AI to, don't do these things, it's like, because there's two options, right? It's like either we put it in a box and what happens if it becomes smart enough to get out of the box with quantum computing, or it just develops its own ability to rewrite itself and improve itself, iterate on itself. But there's also like, okay, it's either we need to have a hard set of rules of like, hey, human life comes first, or it needs to have some degree of a consciousness or a level of like, oh, this is actually important, and so therefore I should prioritize it. Which is like
That's the deeper one. Is it conscious?
Yeah, and that's a whole other can of worms. It freaks me out, man. It really does freak me out because there's also like hidden objectives, right? It's like, is the priority of even whether it's a conscious AI or just an iterative AI, like an AI that can iterate upon itself and find its own gaps, is the primary objective self-preservation or preservation of humanity, right? Because it's like, what happens if we have a very powerful AI or LLM that its priorities are split between either I keep myself alive and I keep my code running and I protect myself and I keep the computers on, or I keep the people alive, And it's like, that's what I'm actually the most scared of in terms of like, oh, solve, climate crisis or like find an alternative fuel source or energy source than just like oil and gas. It's like, sure, those problems could pose a huge humanitarian threat. What I'm even more concerned of is what happens if the AI or a technology decides, oh, it's actually human life inherently is opposed to me staying running or operational. That's where I'm like, oh, that could get really sideways really quick.
Yep, 100%. It's scary, man.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Or like, I've been really going down the rabbit hole of like mimetic super influence. So it turns out memes are like they spread like viruses, and so like there's like a huge amount of science about like the theory of memes and like why memes are viral, like the flu. And it's like, what happens when you create like super propaganda machines where like an AI can deeply research who Matt Tigwell is, figure out everything about you, figure out exactly what your psychological profile is, and then curate infinite amount of memes specifically for you and spin them at you to change your thinking patterns. It's like, and then you point that at, politicians.
So what? It's a dangerous use case.
It's a very dangerous use case. Yeah. I think about it a lot.
Too good at memes.
Dude, imagine the memes. At least we can laugh on the way down. Exciting stuff, man. Are you, like at this point, I noticed for me, it's like I think about these things and they're fun to sit around the campfire and talk about, but I don't really give a shit. Are you like are you doing anything to actively prepare for this, or are you actively spooked about it, or is it just in the back of your mind like, oh fuck, this could get weird?
I think as the average person sitting at home, like, what are you gonna do? That's kind of my thing, is like, don't stress about things you can't change.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I don't think there's too much you can do. I think make money so that you have freedom.
Yeah, build them up.
Financial freedom over location, stuff, so you can make decisions and you're not really subject to like the area you live and the rules there, or like just financial constraints. I think is important because like, especially if a lot of jobs are going to be lost, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
If there's universal basic income, you're really reliant on the government or the area that you live. Stuff. So I think just like make money, make sure you have as much freedom as possible and you're set up, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's the best that you can do.
Yeah. I think we need to return to the basic principles of humanity of like, make sure you've established some degree of self-sufficiency, whether it's you can transport yourself, you can find food for yourself, you know how to protect yourself. Like there's just a basic requirement of self-sufficiency as we go into uncertain times where this, like, we're kind of like nearing the point of no return as humanity. And so it's like, it could be amazing, right? Like we could become interplanetary. We could, have universal base income and free energy and all these awesome things. Or it could turn into a total shit show. So it's like, all right, just make sure you're, stacked up for yourself. But
yeah, no, 100%.
It's a wild ride. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, keep going.
That's it. I was just saying it's a wild fucking ride, man. It's like, I do think that all throughout history, humanity has looked to the future and said, oh, the world's going to end, or like, oh, everything is going to fall apart. We've always been fine. So
yeah,
we'll figure it out.
We've always been fine, but that's also, it's a selection bias. You're sitting here because it's been fine.
Do you think it's not going to be fine? Or so you're saying like, just because it's gone right this far doesn't mean it's always going to go right?
It's like the Great Filter. Have you heard of the Great Filter?
No.
It's basically the idea that like maybe the reason we haven't seen aliens is because as soon as a civilization gets complex enough to have the technology in order to go and become interplanetary and explore like outside of their little universe, that before that happens, they always implode societally. Like something happens, they destroy themselves, they turn on each other, civilization collapses, stuff. So that's like the idea of the Great Filter, that there could have been aliens, but they like destroyed themselves and had internal issues and didn't make it out.
Fuck.
So I don't know to answer the question, like what's going to happen, but
that's gnarly.
Yeah.
Do you, I mean, personally, this is a opinionated question. Like, do you think we're going to make it to the other side? And what do you think it's going to take from us to make it to the other side?
What's the other side?
Like I mean, we're so close to the point of technology empowering human beings where like we can live on other planets, where we can engineer our medical future. So we're not like just dying of sickness for no reason. We can actually, I mean, I would argue that we already have relative career and educational freedom. But I mean, imagine when Neuralink, right? Like, oh, I could decide I wanted to go do anything and I could learn it relatively quickly and go do the thing. Yeah, I think we're very closely approaching a point of like we have free energy, we're living sustainably and in harmony with the planet. We have access to infinite information and it's organized efficiently. Like realistically, humans could do whatever we want. We're not constrained by resources. We're not constrained by processing power or geographical space. That would what I would say the other side is, but we could also just nuke the shit out of ourselves before we get there.
Yep. Well, I think part of it is it good to have all this technology developed so that we don't have to do anything? Like we remove pretty much all responsibility at that point. Everything's free, everything's provided for. You don't really have to work hard for anything. Is that actually better for people? And I think that's like the deeper question behind it. And I would argue no.
Yeah, because then we're just like race to hedonism, race to the bottom.
Yeah. It's hedonistic. There's lack of purpose, I think, destroys people and stuff. So if you don't have to do anything, you don't have any responsibility, then what do you do?
Do you think that this then means we just need to assign a new, like we need to find purpose in something different than like what we've been doing? Like,
I think even current day, we're at the point where you almost have to give yourself a purpose. Like we've obviously lost the living in caves. I have to go hunt. I have to provide just in order to survive.
Yeah.
And stuff. I think that we're already at a point where like you have to create your own purpose.
Yeah.
You see like people that do great things, oftentimes they've, years and years before that, they've been thinking about like, this is my purpose. This is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
And they made it so that like that was like their North Star. They were chasing that the whole time and eventually achieved it.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people that don't set that. There's a lot of people that just settle, go through life, don't really care, about anything, don't have that purpose to drive them and stuff. So I think we're already at that point. I don't know if there's like a clear distinction when we crossed over to that, but I think you do to set your own purpose.
Yeah, I think it's, like what happens when you pour oil into water, where like it kind of separates a little bit over time, but then you get a clear separation. Yeah, I think it's like we're seeing this gap where it's either Ralph Waldo Emerson said the universe makes way for the man who knows where he's going. And I'm a big believer of like, we're in a society where even feudalism, right? Like let's go past the caveman days, even in the days of kings and kingdoms. It was like you were born into a family where it's either I till this farm and I produce something for my lord or my baron or my king, or I get killed because I can't pay my taxes, or I apprentice under this blacksmith and I become a blacksmith, or my whole family line dies. And it's very clear, right? Like there was almost self-assigned, or there was a externally assigned purpose for your life. It's like, oh, I was born to this family. Someone told me I was going to be a knight. Now I have to be a knight. And my options are either be a good enough knight that I don't die, or be a bad enough knight, or like I don't try and I die, right? Like there was no other options. And now we're in a society where it's like, well, do I want to work at 7-Eleven, or do I want to work at, this Saint whatever hospital, or do I want to start a lemonade stand and a software shop?
It's freedom.
It is freedom. But the downside of that is like, it's like you have to assign meaning to your freedom, right? To your point.
With great freedom comes great responsibility. And it's true.
And is that, the universe makes way for the man who knows where he's going. Like, is freedom inherently good or bad? It's like, if you assign meaning to your freedom, if you assign a purpose, you could go either direction with that. So you could tear everything down or you could build everything up.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's actually an interesting way to look at it. I've never thought about that. That freedom, the responsibility that comes with freedom is like a heavy weight. Like you really have to choose your path, have your own purpose, and like be internally motivated, I think, if you live in a more free culture.
For sure.
You're not told what you have to do.
What's interesting about it though, because I've been thinking a lot about this recently, is the concern that, do you think I'm actually starting to realize maybe not everybody is designed for freedom, right? Because it's like, with great power comes great responsibility. So freedom comes with responsibility. Socrates said, through self-discipline is freedom. And so he says, hey, you have to put constraints on yourself. But I'm starting to realize, I'm like, maybe most people just aren't cut out for the freedom that we're talking about, which is maybe even an even deeper question, is like, should everybody have freedom or not? Because like the World Economic Forum would argue no.
Yeah. I think that the way that the world's set up now, what we're starting to see with like just like global emigration, is that like the people kind of come to the country that fits what they want.
Yeah.
In some ways. Like I just know personally, like Canada's super locked up. Like they've definitely taken some of our freedoms. So a lot of people I know that highly value freedom have moved to the United States.
Yeah.
And I think that we're seeing that like globally, like a lot of people are moving to the US if they care about freedom.
But there's this narrative, right? It's like this narrative of like, oh, like we need our freedoms, like social freedoms. But now we're seeing people, mutilate themselves, like cutting off their genitalia. We're seeing people like, oh, I want the freedom to, like, I want job freedom so I can work when I want, where I want, with who I want. And then they're working for Uber because they can clock in with, and we've become this gig economy, which is like, is that actually, to your point, it's like, it almost seems like we're getting more freedoms, but as a society, we're going in the wrong direction here.
What do you think? What do you think is like wrong about the direction that's come with that freedom?
I guess like I should neutralize that of like, are we going in the wrong direction? That's an objective opinion, or that's a subjective opinion. I think that right now as a society, we're becoming less stable, right? It's like the working a gig economy. It's like, yeah, sure, you have more freedom to decide when you want to drive your Uber or not, or when you want to deliver DoorDash or not. But the downside is you have less stability in terms of like you have less of a community. Like this, where I think we're going wrong as a society right now is we're becoming way more individualistic. Like the family unit almost doesn't exist anymore. Like the family unit is hanging on by a thread. People rely on themselves. People don't have strong social lives. And like at least 30 years ago or 40 years ago, we had office families. And like you'd see the same people every day in a blue collar job for 50 years. Now we don't even have that. It's like now people, I wake up at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I pick up my phone. I scroll on TikTok for 4 hours. And then I log into DoorDash and I drive around and do DoorDash until 2 a.m. And then I watch TV. It's like inherently people just don't have relationships anymore. And that to me is wrong. Maybe it's not wrong, but I think that humans are social creatures and we're missing that.
Do you think that that's linked to having more freedom?
Yeah, but I think it's like misused freedom, right? It's like I think we're using our freedom to consume. And it's like there's almost like this selfish freedom of like, oh, I want me. Like, how do I look better? How do I get more clout? But it's not freedom. And this is not a like deeply developed thought. I haven't spent a lot of time on this. So thank you for the conversation. Yeah, it definitely scares me because it's like I think we're just misusing the freedom of like, if everybody had freedom and understood the responsibility of that to cultivate deep and meaningful relationships and to take care of those around them, awesome.
I think the culture has gone extremely hedonistic and people run away from responsibility. And I think that's like the core. I think that's leading to a lot of the issues that you're describing.
For sure.
I think freedom is very positive if you understand the value of responsibility. But because you have freedom, you have to put yourselves in a situation to intentionally give yourself responsibility.
I think it's like self-assigned responsibility is true freedom. Because it's like self-assigned responsibility. This is my mission. This is what I'm willing to die for. This is my family. These are the people that are important to me. This is what I refuse to do. It's like versus because right now it's like it seems like society has stopped assigning significance to things, or like if society doesn't tell you what's right and wrong, if society doesn't tell you what you should and shouldn't prioritize, then if you don't do it, nobody does, and now you have no priority, which is more dangerous. For you in your life, how have you assigned meaning to your freedom? I would consider you a very free human being.
I highly value freedom. So that's why I'm coming to the US. I would say that's one of the underlying reasons why I've continued to focus on making money and growing businesses, because I think that is like the ultimate freedom. Is you have a vehicle that's making you money. I can't go and get fired tomorrow and, lose my financial independence. I've also, intentionally like traveled a lot and stuff to kind of see how the world works. Like, what is freedom good? Is it bad? Like, try to understand some of these things and how different cultures look at it. But yeah, I don't know.
Do you think you've sacrificed anything in this pursuit of, like you're on this pursuit of freedom? So you're focused on getting better every day, physically disciplining yourself and making sure you're building the business, you're saving money, whatever it is. What are some of the things you've sacrificed in this pursuit of personal freedom?
A lot of time, like doing activities that I like, spending a lot of time with friends. I say no to a lot of things and stuff in order to, work on the business, work on myself, trying to get to a spot where I'm more like financially free or just free in general. That's the biggest. It's just time, man. It's balancing priorities. It's having the ability to say no.
Yes.
Which I think is a huge one that is really hard for a lot of people. But what I found with that is like, once you get in the habit of doing it, once you have the purpose, then it's a lot easier to say no.
Yes.
To things that aren't good for you. And dude, honestly, for me, like the last few years living in the West Coast of Canada, I loved it. Like it was great. The activities were great. I loved all the people out there and stuff, but I felt like I wasn't fulfilling my purpose. Like I felt like I had so much more to give. I wasn't progressing in life, and I gave it all up, and I moved to Austin. I packed all the stuff in my truck and just moved down here. Signed a lease, moved down here.
Yeah.
So I was like, I kind of gave it all up, left it all there, started here with nothing, not really knowing anybody and stuff, and just said, okay, I'm going to work on myself and see if I want to like start a life down here.
The value of my yes is only as strong as my no. I think a lot about, for you, it's like you are willing to give up your social life, access to nature, recreational activity. What was the why in moving to Austin? Like you obviously like, okay, do I want to build life here? But there had to be some degree of measured calculation in terms of like, okay, this is worth losing everything that I have. Was it opportunity to make more money, opportunity to have a better intimate life, better social life? What was the thing that you're like, okay, if I get this out of Austin, it's worth letting go of everything that I have here in West Coast Canada?
I think a big part of it is the people. So like I was looking around at the people around me saying like not my friends. Like I love like my group out there, but like a lot of the people around me were just not motivated in the same way I was, or like they just weren't chasing the same things kind of thing. So I was like, are these people making me better? Are they getting me closer to my goals or not? And that was a big part of it. But I would say like the move to Austin was, I just really want to be around people who are pushing me to be better, as a person, in my faith, in terms of building businesses, making money. And I found when I was living out there, I felt very lost. I was almost losing that like sense of purpose a little bit because I wasn't being pushed. I didn't have good examples around me of people that I really wanted to be like, that I was chasing in a few areas of my life. And some I did, but not in all of them. So in some ways, for a while, I felt lost. I felt like I wasn't progressing or moving towards anything. And I was just like out there to snowboard and have fun and stuff, which are all great things, but I think you can't do that all the time.
Agreed. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I acted like a child. And when I became a man, I put away childish things. And it's almost that same thing. I relate deeply to that of like, it's fun to go snowboarding every day, in the winter. It's fun to just go grab the bike and rip the trails. But, you come out here and you're like, okay, I want to be more developed as a man. I want to be more economically self-reliant. I want to be physically better. I want to be socially better. I want to be deeper in my walk with God, whatever it is. That's a big sacrifice, and that's a big opportunity for you to grow. It's also interesting because like you're a product of your environment, right? And so it's like going back to like the freedom thing. It's almost like you decided, wait a second, this social environment that I'm in as a microcosm in Canada, it's like macro across Canada, I've lost a lot of my freedoms and there's a lack of control or whatever. But within my micro society here in West Coast Canada, the freedom or the societal expectation is everybody has a good time. We go do all these fun things. And it's like, you're like, wait a second, maybe I actually want to put myself in a social environment where everybody's peer pressuring me to go to church and save more money and be more aggressive with the business and hire more aggressively, which is, I would argue, a way less free social environment, but moves you more in alignment or closer to who the man you want to be is.
100%. You have to grow up.
Gotta grow up.
That's well put, man. It's easy to end up, especially if you live in like a really beautiful place with lots of great activities. It's easy to end up in Neverland.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it's like there's no real like push to get out or to grow up or to change who you are. And because growth is hard, man.
Growth is
hard. It sucks changing who you are. It sucks, but I think it's something you have to do.
Yeah. I think like change is the only constant of the universe. And my dad used to tell me as a kid, like the law of entropy of like everything moves closer to chaos. And so it's like the whole point of like having life is having like this energy willing like to fight it, to push back and create order. So it's like, all right, like I like if I'm going to change no matter what, I might as well put in the effort and sacrifice to make that change worthwhile.
Well, and I think if you don't intentionally change in a positive way, that I think the default is you change in a negative way.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's like work to upkeep and improve. Whereas like if you just like let things go, it trends negatively automatically. Like 100%. That's the default.
Yeah, it's like the it automatically rolls downhill. It's like path of least resistance is, as we talked about, hedonism, degeneracy, all these things. It's like if we're not consciously upkeeping, if we're not consciously fighting towards something better than that, that's where we're going to default to.
Yeah.
Danger.
Yeah. Lots of awesome people in Austin though.
Yeah.
To get around. People are killing it here. I love it here. So I'm hoping to stay for a while.
Same. Austin's a magical place. And it's definitely brought me into this thought process of like, you're a product of your environment. And so it's like, okay, I might as well make an environment of men and women around me that are also sacrificing and prioritize the same things. Where it's like the men and women I'm around, if I, stay up all night, or I go to the club or I go do these whatever behaviors, they actually look down upon me. Because if I'm in an environment like that where I'm treating my business irresponsibly, or I'm not taking care of the people in my social circle, or I'm just irresponsible with my health or my well-being, and they go, or I'm overeating and they're going, Harrison, what the fuck?
Yep.
Like, grow up, dude. Fix it.
People are really intentional about getting better here.
Yes.
And also like what yours thing sounds like is they're also good at like holding other people around them accountable. Like they want other people to be like leveling up with them too, and they care about like you getting better.
Yeah. And I think how it is like a lot of the like the liberal narrative around this of like, oh, everybody needs freedom and the sexual liberation and all that is like everybody should be able to self-assign what is meaningful. It's like if I just wanted like the best possible sex life, I should be able to decide that about myself and pursue that. But to your point, it's like I need to be around people that remind me of whatever my own priority is. It's like, whatever it is for you or for me, it's like I like being around you because you're a reminder to me of what's actually important to me. And I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should, dial in. So yeah, it's a good thing to have.
100%.
Matt, thanks for joining me today, bro.
Appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, great vibes. For everybody listening, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, press that bell notification for more episodes in the future. Matt, let's do a little rapid fire before we wrap up.
Let's go.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs, 100%.
Dogs, 100%. What kind of big dogs, small dogs?
Big dog.
Big dogs. Let's go. I get like a lot of like a golden retriever vibe.
For me, I grew up with golden retrievers actually.
There we go. Yeah, I love that. Beaches or mountains?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I'd have to go mountains.
Yeah,
for the sports, for the activities.
For sure. Trucks or sports cars?
Both, man.
Don't make me pick. No,
can't choose. I have a truck. I really want a sports car.
Yeah, we've been talking about this.
You need both, man.
Yes. Yeah, it depends on the use case, right? It depends on the use case. How many kids?
I think 3 is ideal.
There you go.
I grew up in a family of 3. I think 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's solid. 100 employees or 5?
That's a good one. I think 5 killers with like AI and like super effective, really good at using like other tools. Yeah.
You want
I think small team, man. Because complexity, as it grows, everything gets slower in a way. As the team grows, more red tape, everything just happens.
You want SEAL Team 6, not the US Army.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. That's very fair. Great. On that case, do you want lots of the same projects or one of a bunch of different unique projects?
I've spent the last 4 years going after like lots of very different, very unique projects and loved it. I've learned a lot. Now I wanted to dial in on consistency so that we can get even better at helping that specific person with that specific problem that they're facing, and we can scale it up and help more people. So to answer, like, yeah, we've definitely started like more unique, kind of one-offs, and then now I'm like, okay, we dialed in on what we're really good at. Now let's grow that out.
I love that. Okay, we're gonna go. So you're going from, okay, I've solved lots of unique problems. Now I want to consistently solve the same problem until I'm the best of the world at it.
Yep.
That's good. Stock market or crypto?
Stocks.
Yeah, that's fair. We're going to go, No, that's all I've got. I'm a happy camper. Anything you want to close out with?
No, man. No, I really appreciate you having me on. Appreciate obviously meeting you and stuff down in Austin, like commute and everything down here. I've just been loving it so far. And yeah.
I do have one more question for you, Matt.
Yeah, bro.
What are some ways that I can make your life better at this moment? Hold you to a height.
Keep pushing me to be a better person.
Okay.
Don't make me cold plunge after this because I hate it.
Yeah, I was gonna.
It's good for me.
I was gonna say, what does that actually look like to make you a better person or hold you to a standard of being a better person?
I think just like being around you, for example, like has had a really positive impact on me. Like admire like your faith journey. You're really intentional about what you do, and also like building on the people around you, even like the fact that you asked that question. So just, man, keep doing you.
Okay, yeah, that's right. It's such a hard thing. It's so ambiguous, right? But it's like, okay, so stay dialed on my faith, set that standard for you. Cool, I can do that.
And push me in business, man. Make me feel bad if I'm behind.
Okay. Yeah.
I like some competition. So
okay.
I would love if all the boys are like, I want to see everyone crushing it, but also a bit of a competitive, like, oh, I want to be the best. Like,
we might have to put a little group chat together with everybody's top line numbers. We'll do a little end of the month check-in just so you feel a little small.
We should.
That'd be pretty good. I was thinking about we should have a leaderboard of all of the boys and just like all areas of life who's performing.
Dude,
and
I was thinking that too, man.
Yeah.
We need like fitness. 100% we need like fitness category, business.
Category. My thing is like, how do we quantitatively measure faith? Like how many prayers did you do, bro?
Without making it meaningless, like just to do it. You know?
How many times did you say Jesus today in a positive? Maybe that does work. How many minutes did you meditate this month, bro?
Yeah. Yeah. How good was your self-development?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm way more self-developed than you guys.
Yeah, bro. I'm so personally developed right now.
I'm so self-developed.
Yeah. Bro, you don't even know how emotionally intelligent I am.
That's awesome.
Maybe not.
Yeah, we need a leaderboard. We need some friendly competition.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, bro, it's like that's the thing, right? Like going across this whole podcast, like we're social animals, and right now we're lacking healthy social environments. So it's like, all right, let's maybe make some competition. Matt, if someone wanted to make a multi-million-dollar SaaS product and take it to market with you, and they've just listened to this podcast, where do they find you to give you their money?
Yeah, so check out our socials, Matthew Tigwell, under Instagram, YouTube, like Meta, everywhere, Matthew Tigwell. Also check out our website.
MATTHEWTIGWELL.
Yes, sir.
No spaces.
MATTHEWTIGWELL.
Matthew Tigwell.
Yeah, so check us out on socials, and also our company is Hilo Labs, HILO labs.com.
I keep on saying Hilo. So it's Hilo.
Yeah, you can go whatever way.
Okay. Hilo Labs it is. HILO Labs. Yep. And socials, someone wants to come send you a multi 5 or 6 figure contract. What social is the best place to find you on?
Instagram.
Yeah. The Instagram funnel works, bro. All right, so DM funnel. You know we love DM funnels. Go ahead and DM Mr. Matthew Tigwell. That's Matthew Tigwell on Instagram. And DM my boy the keyword BackTrack if you came from the BackTrack show, so you can give him your money or ask him more questions.
Let's scale your SaaS.
Let's kill your sass. Let's go. We love a big fat juicy sass. What can I say?
We love MRR.
We love some MRR. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, we call Matt the MRR daddy around here. So yeah, actually, that's the new keyword. If you're listening, send him a DM, MRR
daddy. New handle.
Yeah, new handle on IG. I love it. That actually could work, bro. Talk about a good brand.
Dude, that might be good.
The Mr. Daddy. Mr. Daddy. I love it. MRR daddy. All right. That's it. Boys, thank you. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. We will see you in the next one. Again, Matthew Tigwell on Instagram if you want to talk to our guest. And then you can find me at the Harrison Coley on Instagram as always. DM me as well. But he's the priority. Go send him your money.